Where do you land? A plane lifts off, and the pilot nudges the nose a few degrees. You don't feel it, you don't see it, but you don't land where you planned. That's what happens to you, not with one big failure, with quiet choices you barely notice.
Okay, but if it's that small, why does it matter? Shouldn't real change feel bigger?
That's the lie you keep living under. You assume the change that matters announces itself. You think the big moments decide your life, the promotion, the breakup, the health scare, the New Year's reset. But the real steering happens in the boring 5 seconds before you do what you always do.
Like what?
Like the moment you reach for your phone before you even sit up. Like the moment you say, "I'll start tomorrow," and your body relaxes because it got its way again.
That's dramatic. It's just a phone.
No, it's a vote. That idea that every small action is a vote comes straight from Atomic Habits by James Clear, not because it sounds poetic, but because it explains why your life keeps drifting even when you swear you're trying. Every habit is a vote for the person you're becoming. Most votes look insignificant. That's why they work.
So you're saying my life is getting decided by tiny stuff?
I'm saying your direction is. You don't need a massive mistake to miss your destination. You just need a small drift, repeated.
But I've tried small. I've tried the one-page thing, the 10-minute thing, the just show up thing, and nothing changes.
Because you're staring at the landing, not the trajectory. Let me show you the cruelest example. Picture an ice cube on a table. The room is freezing. You can see your breath. The temperature rises. 26, 27, 28. The cube sits there, smug.
And that's where I quit, right there.
Exactly, because your brain calls that proof. Proof that effort doesn't work. 30, 31, still nothing. Then 32, and the ice begins to melt.
So the difference is 1 degree?
The difference is all the degrees you didn't respect. This is one of the core ideas James Clear keeps coming back to in Atomic Habits. Breakthroughs don't come from heroic days. They come from a pile of invisible days that finally hit a threshold.
That's so frustrating.
It is, and it's also freeing. Because if your progress is delayed, then your failure is delayed too. The reason a bad habit is dangerous isn't because one instance ruins you. It's because it feels harmless enough to repeat.
Like eating one bad meal, skipping one workout, pushing one task to tomorrow?
Yes, the single decision is easy to forgive. That's why it survives. But repetition turns easy to forgive into hard to escape.
So what do I do? Track every tiny thing like a scientist?
No, that's another trap. You'll try to become a new person overnight and call it discipline. You need something simpler. You need to stop asking, "Did I win today?" and start asking, "Which direction did I vote for?"
Direction, not results.
Right. Results are late. They show up after months of you being consistent in private. Your bank account is a lagging measure. Your body is a lagging measure. Your confidence is a lagging measure. You get what you repeat.
So if I want to predict my future,
Look at what you do without thinking. Look at what you repeat when nobody's clapping, when you're tired, when you're irritated, when you're alone with the choice.
that's terrifying.
It should be a little, because it means your life is not built by your intentions. It's built by your defaults.
Okay, but if I'm on a bad trajectory right now, am I just doomed?
No, you're not doomed. You're just drifting. And drifting is reversible if you catch it early. A 1-degree correction at takeoff feels pointless. A 1-degree correction after 10 years feels like a miracle.
So the whole point is tiny changes aren't tiny over time.
Exactly. And that's the deeper meaning behind the word atomic in Atomic Habits. Not small as in weak, but small as in foundational, the building blocks of outcomes that look like magic from the outside.
Like that story about the British cycling team?
Yes, a team that couldn't win for nearly a century doesn't suddenly become world-class because of one inspirational speech. It happens because someone gets obsessed with the smallest improvements nobody respects.
Like what? New bikes?
Smaller, stranger, the kind of changes you would laugh at. And that's why they win.
So what's the real lesson?
That the moment you call a small action pointless, you're training yourself to abandon the only process that actually works. You're not losing because you lack willpower, you're losing because your system keeps producing the same you.
System.
The way your life is set up, the default path your days fall into.
So if I keep obsessing over goals,
You'll keep having the same emotional cycle. Hope, intensity, burnout, shame, reset. That cycle feels productive. It's not. It's just familiar.
then what should I focus on?
Not the scoreboard. The practice, the tiny choice that happens again tomorrow. Because your life doesn't change in a moment, it changes in a direction.
And if I don't change the direction?
You land somewhere you didn't choose. That's the real question this chapter leaves you with. Not how do I transform, but what am I repeating?
And if I don't like the answer?
Then we go one level deeper, because the next chapter isn't just about what habits do to your results, it's about what they do to your identity. And once you see that, you can't unsee it.
Your habits aren't the problem. You keep trying to fix what you do, and every time it slips.
That can't be right. If I just try harder, new plan, better system, it should work.
You've tried harder before. You didn't fail because the plan was weak. You quit because something quieter pushed back. It wasn't the habit, it was the story underneath it.
So what, I'm just lazy?
No, you're loyal. Loyal to an identity you've been rehearsing for years. I'm not a morning person. I'm bad at sticking with things. I'm just not built that way. You don't argue with those sentences. You obey them.
But I want to change.
Wanting is cheap. Identity is expensive. Most people aim their effort at results. Lose weight, finish the book, run the race. They build habits to chase outcomes. But the direction is backwards.
Backwards how?
You're trying to do your way into being when change actually runs the other way. Picture two people skipping a workout. One says, I'm trying to exercise more. The other says, I don't miss workouts. Same decision, different weight.
That still sounds like wording.
It's not wording, it's self-alignment. One person is negotiating with who they are, the other already decided. Here's the quiet truth most habit advice skips. Behavior that contradicts your identity never lasts. You can force yourself for a week, maybe a month, but eventually you drift back, not to comfort, but to consistency with who you believe you are.
So I need to think differently.
No, you need evidence. When you write one page, you don't feel like a writer, but you are acting like one. When you train once, you're not fit, but you cast a vote. Every action whispers, maybe this is who I am. Identity isn't declared, it's accumulated. This chapter isn't about changing habits, it's about changing what your habits mean.
So the habit isn't the goal?
No, the habit is the proof. You don't rise to your goals, you fall to your identity. If you see yourself as someone who quits, every plan becomes temporary. If you see yourself as someone who shows up, discipline becomes unnecessary. Here's the paradox. Small actions feel insignificant, but they're heavy with meaning. Each one asks a question. Who are you becoming right now? You don't need perfection. You need a majority. One vote today, another tomorrow.
And if I mess up?
Elections allow dissent. They don't require unanimity. Your habits are not a checklist. They're a mirror. Every time you repeat one, you're not just doing something, you're becoming someone. If this is true, then the real work hasn't started yet. Because next, we have to look at how habits actually form and why your brain keeps pulling you back to the same patterns. That itch to check your phone? Feel it? You're not bored, You're not weak. You're just standing in a moment your brain has memorized. The screen lights up. Your hand moves before the thought finishes forming. It feels like a choice, but it isn't happening there.
Come on, I know what I'm doing. I just want a break.
That's the story it tells you after. The real decision already passed. What if the habit doesn't begin with the action at all? What if it starts earlier, so early you never notice it arrive?
So you're saying the problem is willpower again?
No, I'm saying willpower shows up late to the scene. Picture this, a cat inside a small wooden box. No plan, no strategy, just movement. Paw here, nose there, frustration building. Then, by accident, a lever clicks. The door opens. Food. Next time, less wandering, fewer mistakes. Soon, no hesitation at all. The body remembers what the mind never analyzed. That's the part most people miss.
So habits are just muscle memory?
Not muscle, prediction. Your brain isn't asking, what should I do? It's asking, what worked last time? And it answers fast. Your attention is expensive. It can only hold one thing at a time. So your brain cuts corners. It builds shortcuts. It hands off decisions to a quieter system under awareness. Not because it's lazy, because it's efficient.
Then why does it keep choosing things I regret?
Because regret happens after the reward. Your brain doesn't remember intentions, it remembers relief. Every habit, every single one, moves through the same 4 beats. Not slowly, not thoughtfully, instantly. Something cues you. You feel a pull, you act, you feel relief, or pleasure, or escape. Then the loop tightens. Again.
So when I grab my phone, it's not about the phone.
It's about the change it promises. Distraction, control, comfort, silence. The habit isn't the behavior, it's the solution your brain believes in. Here's the turn most people don't expect. You don't rise or fall to the level of your goals. You sink to the level of the problems you're solving on repeat. Habits aren't about self-improvement. They're about self-preservation.
Wait, so bad habits aren't self-sabotage?
They're misaligned solutions. They worked once, they just kept working too long. This chapter comes from Atomic Habits by James Clear, not to give you rules, but to show you the machinery already running. Because once you see the machine, you stop arguing with it. Every habit passes through 4 moments: a signal, a desire for change, an action, and a payoff. Miss one, and the habit collapses. Strengthen one, and it grows legs.
So I just need to fix the action?
That's the last place to look. The action is the echo. Change what comes before, and the behavior follows like gravity. You might think this means control, design, discipline, but that belief will stall you later because habits don't obey motivation, they obey friction. Right now, your environment is quietly voting for the person you become tomorrow. Every surface, every sound, every default, and you're either shaping those votes or inheriting them. Next, we don't talk about effort. We talk about what your eyes keep missing. You think you see clearly, but that's the problem. You don't miss the big things, you miss the obvious ones. Not because you're careless, because you're practiced.
That doesn't make sense. If something's obvious, I'd notice it.
Would you? Or would your brain decide it already knows what it's looking at? A woman walks into a family gathering. She's relaxed, laughing, saying hello. Then she sees her father-in-law, and something in her body tightens. Not fear, not panic, just wrong.
Like a gut feeling?
Not even that loud, quieter. She tells him calmly, "You need to go to the hospital." He jokes, everyone laughs. She doesn't. A few hours later, doctors say he was minutes from a heart attack.
Okay, but that's instinct. Some people just have that.
That's the comforting explanation, because if it's instinct, you don't have to look at your own habits. She couldn't explain what she saw, but her brain had seen it before, hundreds of times. Radar operators spot threats no one else sees. Art experts flinch at forgeries they can't describe. Radiologists point to danger before the scan shows anything. They're not guessing, they're noticing before awareness catches up.
So experience turns into intuition.
Experience turns into automatic recognition, and that's where habits live. Here's the part people miss. You don't start most habits by deciding, you start them by not noticing.
Wait, are you saying habits begin before I'm even aware of the cue?
Exactly. Hunger, tension, the urge to check your phone, they don't announce themselves, they just arrive. And that doesn't make you broken, it makes you human. Your body handles thousands of things without asking permission. Breathing, digestion, balance. Habits just joined the list. But what makes habits useful also makes them dangerous, because once a pattern works, your brain stops checking.
So that's why I apologize before asking a question, why I reach for snacks without thinking, why I do things I swore I'd stop.
Autopilot doesn't care if the pattern is still helping, it only cares that it used to. The more familiar the cue, the less visible it becomes. The treats on the counter, the remote by the couch, the phone in your pocket. They don't feel like triggers, they feel like background.
So the problem isn't self-control, it's that I don't even see what's starting the behavior.
Now you're looking in the right direction. Change doesn't start with force. It starts with noticing without judgment, not fixing, not improving, just seeing. But awareness doesn't happen automatically. You have to interrupt autopilot. You need a way to bring the invisible into view.
So how do you see what you've trained yourself not to see?
That's where the real work begins.
After I pour the coffee, you already know what comes next, or at least you think you do. The mug is warm in your hand, steam curls up, then disappears, and somehow nothing follows.
I mean, yeah, that's the problem, right? I intend to do the thing, I just don't do it.
That pause right there, that's not laziness. It's not a lack of discipline. It's a missing hinge. Most habits don't fail because they're hard. They fail because they never start. Not dramatically, not loudly. They fade quietly in moments like this.
So what? I need more motivation? A better reason?
No, you need the next move to already exist. Watch what usually happens. You tell yourself, I'll exercise more, I'll write, I'll meditate. Big intentions, soft edges. They float because nothing grabs them.
But flexibility is good, right? I don't want to lock myself in. I'll do it when it feels right.
That's the trap. When everything is possible, nothing is obvious. And when nothing is obvious, the moment passes you by. Here's the shift most people miss. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your clarity. Not effort, not desire. Clarity.
So I'm not unmotivated, I'm just undecided. Every single time.
Exactly. Every habit asks one quiet question first. When does this live? Where does it happen? If you can't answer, the habit has nowhere to land. There's a reason one simple sentence works when willpower doesn't, not because it inspires you, but because it removes choice. I will behavior at, time, in, location. The fog clears. The moment knows what it's for.
That feels rigid. What if the timing's bad? What if I don't feel like it?
You're not locking yourself into the habit. You're locking yourself into the decision. Once the decision is made, your brain can finally relax.
So that's why it feels lighter when I already know the plan? Like no debate, no negotiation.
That's relief, not from doing the habit, from not having to decide anymore. Now take it one step closer. Most of your day already runs on autopilot. One action leads to the next, like falling dominoes. So instead of asking when, you attach the habit to what already happens. After I, current habit, I will, new habit.
So I just stack everything? Turn my life into a checklist?
No, you choose one solid anchor, something you already do without fail. That's what gives the habit gravity. After the coffee, the body already knows where it is. No inspiration required, no willpower summoned, just a next step, waiting. This is why the first rule matters, not motivation, not intensity, obviousness. When the cue is clear enough, the habit almost pulls you toward it.
So starting isn't about trying harder, it's about making the moment unmistakable.
Yes, give your habits a time and a place to live, and they stop drifting. But here's what we haven't touched yet. Even the clearest habit can still disappear if the environment quietly works against you.
So clarity starts it, but something else keeps it going.
Exactly. And once you see that, you can't unsee it.
Your willpower isn't the problem. You're standing there, reaching for something you promised you wouldn't. And before the guilt shows up, before the story about discipline even starts, pause. Look around. Not at your hand, at the room.
Come on, that's just me being weak. If I cared more, I'd stop.
Interesting how certain that sounds. Now rewind 10 seconds. Same you, same intention, different placement. The snack wasn't there, and nothing felt hard.
So what, my motivation switches on and off based on furniture?
Not switches, drifts. Your attention goes where the room points it.
That feels like an excuse. I should want better.
Notice how quickly this becomes a moral trial. But nothing about this moment asked for courage. It asked for eyesight. Change the room and behavior bends, without speeches, without pep talks. People don't wake up deciding to drink more water. They drink what shows up everywhere.
So you're saying I'm predictable?
I'm saying you're human, and humans respond to cues before reasons catch up. What you see first feels like what you want most, not because it's better, because it's obvious.
Then why does it feel like I chose it?
Because the choice happens fast, faster than explanation. The story comes later. This chapter isn't about resisting temptation. It's about noticing who set the stage.
Wait, so the real lever isn't inside me?
It is, but it's not effort, it's authorship. You can be shaped by spaces you never designed, or you can design the spaces that shape you.
That sounds powerful. Too powerful.
Only if you keep thinking of rooms as objects. They're relationships. This desk tells your brain what happens here. That couch tells a different story. Mix the stories, and the easiest one wins.
So if I want something to stick, I give it a home?
Exactly. One space, one purpose. Make the better action the obvious one. Then watch how little motivation you need. This isn't control through force, it's alignment through design. And once you see that, the next question isn't what should I try harder at, it's what should I move? Self-control isn't what saves you. You've tried squeezing harder, jaw set, teeth clenched. For a moment, it works. Then the room doesn't change, and you're tired before the day even starts.
That's not fair. Some people are just disciplined. They resist, they push through, they don't make excuses.
Watch them more closely. Not what they do when temptation shows up, but how rarely it shows up at all.
So what, you're saying willpower doesn't matter?
I'm saying you keep aiming it at the wrong target. There was a time when people assumed addiction was permanent. Once hooked, always hooked. No exceptions. Then something happened that broke that story. Men left one environment and returned to another. And habits everyone believed were irreversible, fell away almost overnight. No pep talks, no moral awakening, no heroic discipline, just different surroundings.
Wait, so they didn't fix themselves?
They didn't need to. The cues disappeared, and when the cues vanished, the behavior lost its grip. This is where the misunderstanding lives. We think bad habits are proof of weak character, a flaw inside you, something to overpower. But habits don't live in your character, they live in the room.
that sounds like an excuse. If it's the room, then why can't I just ignore it?
Because your brain doesn't wait for permission. A habit isn't a decision, it's a reflex waiting for a signal. Once that signal appears, the urge moves first and your explanation comes later. That's why shame backfires. That's why warnings sometimes increase the very behavior they're meant to stop. Stress becomes the cue, and the habit rushes in to help.
So every time I feel bad, I make it worse.
Not because you're broken, because the loop feeds itself. You feel off, you reach for relief, the relief deepens the feeling. Here's the reframe you weren't expecting. The people with the best self-control are the ones who almost never need it. Not because they're stronger, but because they're rarely cornered. They don't fight urges. They arrange their lives so the fight never starts.
So discipline isn't about saying no, it's about not having to say anything at all.
Exactly. Resisting temptation is a short-term move. Designing your environment is a long-term one. Remove the trigger, and the habit often fades with it. Not through force, through absence.
That's unsettling. If I stop fighting, what does that say about who I am?
It says you finally stopped blaming yourself for a problem that was never personal, and it leaves you with an unfinished question. If your environment shapes your behavior this much, what else have you been calling self-control that's really just design in disguise? What if the decision happens before you think it does? Before willpower, before logic, before you even notice you're leaning in? Picture this. You're standing still, and something across the room already has momentum, not because it's important, not because it's good for you, but because it's brighter, louder, slightly exaggerated, and your attention is already moving.
Okay, but I choose what I do. I'm not some puppet reacting to shiny things.
That's what makes this uncomfortable, because the pull doesn't ask for permission. Hold this image, a tiny bird, newly born, no experience, no learning, just instinct. It pecks at a red dot, not because it's smart, because it's obvious. Now imagine that dot growing larger, brighter, impossible to ignore. The bird doesn't hesitate, it lunges.
So you're saying we're birds now?
I'm saying your brain still runs on rules written long before grocery aisles, phones, or infinite scroll. Rules like, that looks rewarding, move. And here's the quiet twist. The fake version often works better than the real one. A snack engineered to crunch just right. A screen that refreshes just fast enough. A notification that promises something, not specific, just enough. None of it is accidental.
But that just means the problem is self-control, right? I should resist harder.
That's the trap, because resistance assumes the decision happens after desire, but desire shows up first. There's a moment, small, fast, almost invisible, when anticipation lights up your brain before you act, before the bite, before the click, before the habit. That spark, that's what moves you. Not pleasure, expectation.
Wait, so wanting matters more than liking?
Exactly. You don't act because something feels good. You act because you expect it will. Think about it. The vacation feels best before you arrive. The message feels most exciting before you open it. The craving peaks before the reward. That's not a flaw. That's how habits are built. And once you see it, something shifts. Because attraction isn't random, it's design.
So if attraction is doing the deciding, then I've already lost.
Or you've just found the lever. Here's the quiet relief. The same force pulling you into distractions can pull you into better habits too. Not by making them virtuous, but by making them desirable. Imagine pairing effort with something you already crave, motion with entertainment, discomfort with comfort. The hard thing becomes the doorway to the pleasant thing. Suddenly, you're not forcing yourself forward, you're being pulled.
So the habit isn't changing, the feeling before it is.
Yes, because habits follow anticipation, and once attraction is on your side, willpower gets a break. But here's what we haven't finished yet. If desire can be engineered, what decides which desires win? Because attraction explains the pull, but it doesn't explain the cue. And that's where the next layer begins.
If you lived somewhere else, you'd want something different. Not because you changed, because normal would. Picture it. Same you, same goals, same quiet promises to yourself. Different room, different people, different gravity.
Okay, but come on, my habits are mine. I decide what I do.
You decide inside a room that's already leaning. You don't feel the tilt because you grew up on it. Watch how fast "I want this" turns into "this is just what people like us do." The story usually starts small, a house filled with one kind of talk, one kind of praise, one kind of obsession that doesn't feel like obsession because everyone shares it. What feels extreme from the outside feels playful from the inside. What looks disciplined looks obvious. What looks unusual looks inevitable.
So you're saying motivation doesn't matter?
I'm saying attraction comes first, and attraction is social before it's personal. Hold this image. You walk into a room. Nobody says a word, but every wall tells you what gets rewarded here. What people clap for, what they ignore, what they quietly roll their eyes at. You don't need instructions. You start adjusting without noticing. Posture, language, effort.
But that's just peer pressure. That's a bad thing.
Only when it's pointing the wrong way. Most of the time, it's invisible. That's why it works. Here's the part most people miss. You don't copy habits because they're effective. You copy them because they help you belong. Belonging feels like safety. Safety feels like relief. And relief is addictive. So when a behavior earns approval, when it gets a nod, a laugh, an invitation, it doesn't feel like discipline. It feels right.
So if everyone around me skips workouts or overeats or never rests, I'm just stuck?
Not stuck, pulled. There's a difference. And this is the quiet danger. Most days, you'd rather be wrong together than right alone. Not because you're weak, because you're human. This chapter isn't really about habits. It's about identity protection. You defend what keeps you included, even when it costs you. You don't ask, "Is this good for me?" You ask, "Will this separate me?" That question runs in the background of everything. You don't need more willpower. You don't need better rules. You need a different reference point, a place where the thing you want to become already looks ordinary.
So I just copy better people?
Not better, closer. Join a group where the behavior you want is already normal and where you already belong in some small way. Shared language, shared taste, shared jokes. Change sticks when it feels like people like us do things like this. And after you fit in, something interesting happens. First, you imitate to belong. Then once you belong, you start looking for ways to stand out. That's how growth sneaks in without resistance. So if you're frustrated with a habit that won't stick, ask a different question. Not "why can't I commit?" but "who am I trying not to lose?" Because the room you're in is quietly shaping what feels attractive. And the next chapter, it asks what happens when normal is no longer enough. You don't crave the habit. You crave what it promises. You tell yourself it's the thing, the scroll, the refresh, the quick check, but notice the pause right before you touch it. That pause is the truth.
So it's not the habit? Because it really feels like it is.
It feels like the habit because the habit learned your language. It learned how to say, "I can fix this."
Fix what? I'm not broken. I'm just bored or restless or tired.
Exactly. The habit never shows up as itself. It shows up as a solution. Picture a group of people sitting together, phones out, conversations half present. Someone checks their screen, then someone else does too.
It spreads.
It always does. Not because the phone is irresistible, but because the promise is.
Some people eventually stop reaching for it, not because the device changes, because the promise does.
You're saying they didn't fight the urge, they stopped believing it would give them something.
They stopped believing it meant connection, or relief, or certainty, or escape.
That sounds too easy. Just change your mind?
Stay with me. You think, I want a snack, but that's not the motive. That's just the costume. Underneath almost every craving is something ancient: energy, safety, belonging, status, certainty.
So my phone isn't the problem, it's what I think it's fixing.
Yes, your habits are modern answers to old questions. Different century, same desires.
Then why does it feel automatic? Like I don't even choose anymore?
Because before every action, there's a prediction, so fast you mistake it for instinct. You see a cue, your brain runs a simulation and decides, is this worth repeating?
So when I reach for my phone, I'm not chasing information, I'm chasing a different feeling.
That's the shift, and it's quieter than people expect. You don't want the scroll, you want the state.
That actually makes me feel less weak.
Good, because weakness was never the cause. Feelings are signals. They tell you when the gap between now and next gets too wide.
So cravings are like notifications from the body.
Yes, something's missing. Something wants to change. And here's what most people miss. The cue isn't the cause. The prediction is.
Two people, same notification. One taps, one ignores.
Because they're predicting different futures.
So all I have to do is make bad habits feel worse and good ones feel better.
Almost. But that still leaves one problem. You keep saying, I have to. Try this instead. I get to.
That feels like wordplay.
It's prediction work. When you pair effort with something you enjoy, your brain learns the shortcut.
So the cue changes and the craving follows.
Not because you forced it, because you rewrote the promise. You don't crave the habit, you crave what it promises. And once you see the promise clearly, you get to choose a better one. If habits are predictions, the next question isn't what you want to change, it's how easy you make the better prediction to follow. You're practicing avoidance. You're not stuck because it's hard. You're stuck because you're staying safe.
Wait, how is preparing avoidance? That sounds backwards. Planning is responsible.
It feels responsible because it removes risk. No judgment, no exposure, no chance to be wrong. You stay in motion without moving forward.
Okay, but motion still counts. I'm doing things.
There was a class once, half the room told to chase perfection, the other half told to just keep producing. One perfect photo versus hundreds of imperfect ones. Guess which group actually learned?
The one with talent?
No, the one willing to be seen failing. The students who chased quantity weren't careless, they were exposed. Every attempt risked being bad, and every attempt taught them something real. The others stayed clean, theoretical, safe. They finished with ideas about excellence, not evidence of it.
So thinking is the problem.
No, hiding inside thinking is. There's a difference most people never name: motion and action. Motion is when you plan, research, optimize, rewrite the plan. Action is when something exists that didn't exist before.
Motion feels productive because it looks like effort.
Action feels dangerous because it creates proof. But motion still counts, right? I mean, I'm lining things up, only if it leads somewhere. Otherwise, it's rehearsal without opening night. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Motion lets you delay failure. If nothing ships, nothing can be judged. If nothing starts, nothing can fall apart. So you stay in the safest possible loop, almost.
So what actually breaks the loop?
Repetition, not clarity, not confidence, not the perfect plan. Reps. When you repeat an action, any action, the brain changes around it. The path gets smoother, the effort gets lighter, not because time passed, but because you showed up again.
So the goal isn't to feel automatic.
No, automatic is a side effect. The real goal is to stop negotiating with yourself. One repetition makes the next easier, not because it worked, but because it happened.
So this isn't about speed.
Exactly. It's about direction. You can move slowly, clumsily, imperfectly. You just can't move backward into safety.
So planning becomes a problem when it replaces practice.
Exactly. When preparation turns into procrastination, the solution isn't motivation, it's friction removal. Make the action so small it's harder not to do it, because once you act, even poorly, you've crossed a line. You don't need to be better, you need to repeat. And the question you can't avoid now is this: if repetition is the key, why do we make habits so hard to repeat in the first place?
What if progress prefers convenience? You already know the answer. Your body leans before your mind votes, not because you don't care, but because something older than motivation just spoke.
So you're saying the easy path wins. That feels like giving up, like lowering standards.
That's the story we tell ourselves, that effort is proof, that struggle is virtue, that if it's hard, it must be worth more. But look at history. Not your history, human history. Civilizations didn't grow where people wanted it more. They grew where progress faced less resistance.
Wait, are you saying success spreads like momentum? Like water finding the lowest point?
Exactly. And water doesn't care about your intentions. You can force it, or you can straighten a line.
But that sounds like cheating. If I really cared, shouldn't I push harder?
That's the trap. You think effort creates outcomes, but effort only allows outcomes when the path lets it through. Every habit you struggle with is blocked somewhere, not by who you are, but by what stands in the way.
So motivation doesn't matter?
It matters, right up until friction shows up. Notice what fills your time: scrolling, checking, watching, not because it's meaningful, but because it's easy to start. Effort decides less than you think. Convenience decides more than you want to admit.
Okay, but then explain this. People do hard things all the time. They raise kids, build companies, climb mountains.
Yes, and they don't rely on how they feel that day. On the days when discipline is strong, anything works, but on the days when it isn't, only the path with the least resistance survives. This isn't about doing only easy things. It's about making the right things easier when you're weak.
So the goal isn't willpower, it's setup.
Now you're getting closer. This chapter isn't about laziness. It's about identity under pressure, who you become when energy runs out.
So every habit is really just an obstacle?
Yes, an obstacle between you and what you want. You don't want the habit, you want the result. And the bigger the obstacle, the less likely you cross it.
So I just simplify everything, strip it all down. Life on autopilot.
Careful. Easy doesn't mean mindless. It means intentional design. When you reset a space, you're not cleaning the past, you're preparing the future. A few seconds of friction can stop a bad habit cold. A few seconds removed can make a good one inevitable. Progress doesn't ask how badly you want it. It asks how easy you've made it. The smooth path didn't change. You did, the moment you realized what was actually choosing for you. And this still isn't the full picture, because ease explains starting, but not sticking. That's where the next shift begins. Notice when everything stops. There's a moment like this every day. Not loud, not dramatic, just still. It's the second when momentum hasn't chosen a direction yet. The couch waits, so does the gym bag. Both are close enough to feel inevitable.
Okay, but this is where motivation matters, right? This is the part where you either have it or you don't.
That's the story we tell ourselves. But watch closely. Nothing has happened yet. No workout, no failure. Just a pause. And pauses decide more than effort ever does. Think about the last time you procrastinated. Not the whole evening, just the beginning of it. You tell yourself it's temporary.
5 minutes.
That's not a decision. That's nothing.
Exactly. That's why it works. Most days don't turn because of big choices. They turn because of tiny ones that don't feel like choices at all. You don't decide to skip the workout. You decide to sit. You don't decide to abandon the project. You decide to open something easier. And once you're moving, even slowly, it's easier to keep going than to stop. Habits don't finish the work. They choose the direction.
So if habits choose the direction, then starting is the dangerous part.
Starting is the powerful part. There are these quiet forks in the day, moments so small they barely register. Change clothes or don't. Open the notes or don't. Tie the shoes or don't. Each one locks in the menu for what comes next. Once you're on the couch, the options shrink. Once you're in the gym clothes, the workout almost feels decided. Not because you're disciplined, but because the path is already pointing forward. Here's the mistake most people make next. They try to make the whole habit happen. 30 minutes, perfect focus, a complete session. And when that feels heavy, they don't start at all.
Right, because who gets excited about doing almost nothing?
Someone who understands momentum. There's a rule here that feels too small to matter, almost insulting. When you start, it should take less than 2 minutes. Not work for 2 minutes, not finish anything, just begin. 1 page, 1 sentence, shoes on, notes open. That's it.
That sounds like tricking yourself.
It sounds that way because we're obsessed with outcomes, but habits don't care about outcomes yet. They care about entry points. You don't build consistency by doing impressive things. You build it by showing up when it would have been easier not to. Here's the quiet reframe, and this is where most people miss it. The 2 minutes aren't a warm-up. They are the habit. If all you do is start, you've already won. Because once you're in motion, stopping feels stranger than continuing. You open the notes, you read 1 line, and you stay a little longer. Not because you forced yourself, but because the path is already moving.
So procrastination isn't about willpower, it's about never crossing the entrance ramp.
Exactly. We think the problem is doing the work, but the real skill is starting without negotiation. Master that, and the rest becomes negotiable in your favor. Show up first, refine later. You don't need a better plan. You need a smaller beginning. And once you see how much changes after the first 2 minutes, you'll start noticing those pauses everywhere. That's where the next shift begins.
The internet shuts off. It's quiet for a second. Not peaceful, just exposed. The reflex is already there. Hand drifting, eyes searching for something that isn't available anymore.
That's extreme. I'd just turn it back on.
You look around. The switch is gone. The password changed. The door you usually walk through isn't there tonight. This is the moment most plans die. Not when motivation runs out, but when stopping requires more effort than continuing.
So the trick is self-control. Make better choices.
Watch what actually happened. Nothing inside you changed. No pep talk, no resolute. The environment made the decision before you could. You didn't resist temptation, you removed its doorway.
Okay, but I still want the wrong things less.
That's the fight you keep losing, arguing with yourself at the exact moment your willpower is weakest. The winning move happens earlier, when you're calm, when future you still feels like a promise.
You mean set traps for myself?
Set rails, so when momentum hits, it can only go one direction. Imagine a habit where quitting is awkward, embarrassing, costly. You pay for the class in advance. You schedule the meeting with someone you respect. You box half the meal before it reaches the table.
That feels like cheating.
It feels like honesty. You're admitting who you are in the moment, not who you hope to be later. This chapter isn't about discipline at all. It's about design.
So if I design the system, behavior follows.
Exactly. When behavior is inevitable, character stops being a debate.
The most reliable habits don't rely on memory, mood, or moral strength. They run because the system runs. Some decisions pay you back every day after. A better mattress, automatic savings, notifications turned off, apps deleted, lights on timers, bills on autopay. One choice, quietly compounding.
That sounds boring.
Boring is dependable. Boring is free. The same force works against you. When effort drops to zero, impulses win by default. Autoplay, one click, infinite scroll. You don't choose again. You just never stop choosing.
So the environment has been training me this whole time.
Yes, you just weren't the one holding the pen. When the internet shuts off, something else turns on. Focus, depth, work that actually matters. Not because you're stronger, but because the distraction became impossible.
And once it's impossible, I don't even miss it.
That's the surprise. Desire shrinks when access disappears. You've learned how to make habits easier. Now you've seen how to make them inevitable. But there's one problem left. What happens when the habit sticks and then slowly stops serving who you're becoming? That question doesn't belong to today, but it's coming next.
You're not failing because you lack discipline. You tell yourself you'll do better tomorrow. You picture the version of you who follows through. But when the moment arrives, this moment, your body hesitates. Not because you don't care, because nothing here feels worth repeating.
So what, I just need a stronger reason? More motivation?
If reasons worked, this would already be easy. In the late 90s, a public health worker lands in a city where illness spreads faster than hope. Crowded streets, no clean water, children getting sick again and again. Everyone knows the rule: wash your hands. Everyone agrees it matters. Almost no one does it consistently.
So they didn't understand the risk?
They understood it perfectly. That wasn't the problem. The problem was the ending. Then something small changes. Not a lecture, not a warning, a different kind of soap. It smells better, it foams faster, it feels good. And suddenly, without anyone saying, be disciplined, hands get washed. Again and again. Months later, sickness drops. Years later, the habit stays. Not because people became better, but because the behavior finally paid them back, immediately.
So the secret is rewards, just bribe yourself.
Careful, that's not what happened. The soap didn't reward the outcome, it rewarded the action. Your brain learns one way. It repeats what feels good now, it avoids what doesn't. This is the rule beneath every habit you've ever kept, and every one you've lost. What is rewarded is repeated, what is punished is avoided. Not later, now. This isn't about willpower, it's about timing. You live in a world where the best things pay off last: health, skill, trust, freedom. But your brain was built for a world where payoff came first. So when a good habit feels boring, when progress feels invisible, your brain assumes it failed, and it looks elsewhere.
That explains a lot, so I just need to wait it out?
Waiting is the hardest strategy. There's another option. If a habit doesn't feel satisfying at the end, it won't come back tomorrow, so you change the ending. Not with guilt, with a signal. Skip a purchase, watch money move. Finish a workout, mark it complete. Cook at home, see something grow. You're not chasing pleasure, you're teaching your brain this mattered. At first, the reward is external: a mark, a transfer, a small win. Later, something else takes over. Energy, pride, identity. You stop asking, should I do this, because the answer feels obvious.
So once it becomes who I am, I'm done, right?
Almost. Because satisfaction is powerful and dangerous. The same rule that builds habits locks them in, good or bad. This law completes the loop. The first steps get you started. This one decides if you return. And once your brain learns what feels rewarding, it won't forget. But there's a cost to repeating anything forever, even the habits that built you. And that's where the next chapter begins, when consistency stops helping and starts holding you back.
2 jars, 1 habit survives. You don't need motivation. You don't need willpower. You need to see something move. Nothing impressive just happened, and yet something did.
So that's it? Move a paperclip and suddenly I'm disciplined?
That question sounds reasonable. It's also the reason most habits disappear. Because you think the habit is the effort, but the habit is the proof. Every day feels the same when you're inside it. No fireworks, no before and after, just time passing. Until one day, you can see that time passed.
Okay, but I've tried tracking. Calendars, apps, streaks. I stop tracking, then I stop everything.
Good. That's not failure. That's the real problem finally showing itself. You didn't stop because tracking doesn't work. You stopped because nothing was talking back to you. No signal, no response, no evidence that yesterday mattered. That empty square is louder than you think. It doesn't say you failed, it whispers something worse. This doesn't count.
That's exactly why I hate streaks. Miss once and it's ruined, so why even bother?
Because the chain was never the point. This is where people get it backwards. They think the chain is fragile. They think consistency means never slipping. But the habit doesn't die when you miss once. It dies when missing once turns into missing again. Missing once is an accident. Missing twice is a decision.
So you're saying one bad day doesn't matter?
I'm saying one bad day is expected. Life will interrupt you. Travel, illness, exhaustion. That part isn't personal. What is personal is whether you come back. There's a quiet rule that changes everything. Never miss twice. Not be perfect, not make up for it, just return.
But if I only half do it, isn't that cheating?
No, that's identity maintenance. 5 minutes at the gym doesn't transform your body, but it protects something far more fragile. The belief that you're the kind of person who shows up. This is where habits actually stick. Not on your best days, on the days you'd rather disappear. Because avoiding losses matters more than chasing wins. A 0 erases more progress than a good day creates.
So the bad days are actually the important ones?
They're the days that keep the math working. But there's another trap hiding here. Once you start tracking, you'll want to win the numbers. You'll chase the streak, the scale, the count. And slowly, you'll forget why you started.
So how do I know what to track?
You don't track everything. You track what reflects who you're becoming. And sometimes you change the measurement. Because not all progress shows up as a number. Energy, focus, confidence, those still count, even if you can't graph them. The jar doesn't motivate you, it reminds you. That yesterday happened, that effort leaves a trace, that today isn't starting from 0.
And if the jar empties?
Then tomorrow you move the first paperclip. That's it. No drama, no restart speech, no guilt. Just proof again. 2 jars, 1 decision, not to be perfect, just to come back. And next, there's a reason even good habits can quietly stop working, even when the streak stays alive. Imagine someone watching right now. Not judging, not cheering, just present. Your hands slow, your posture changes. The decision you were about to postpone suddenly feels heavier.
Okay, but that's pressure, fear, guilt. I thought we were done with that.
You think this chapter is about motivation. It isn't. We've spent all this time making habits obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying, and still some habits slip through. Not because you don't know what to do, because nothing happens when you don't.
So the fix is punishment. That sounds extreme.
Extreme compared to what you're already paying? Here's the quiet truth. Most bad habits survive because they're comfortable now and expensive later. The bill never arrives on time.
But consequences eventually show up. Health, career, relationships?
Eventually is a generous word. When consequences are distant, your brain treats them like rumors. When they're immediate, your body listens.
So you're saying pain works?
I'm saying speed works. Think about the behaviors you never mess up. Not because you love them, because messing up would sting right away.
Like what?
Like being late when someone's waiting, like missing a deadline that embarrasses you, like breaking a promise out loud. This isn't about being cruel to yourself. It's about removing the delay.
So the partner is the pain?
No, the delay was the problem. The partner removes it. Here's what matters most, and this is easy to miss. You already live this way in dozens of areas. You show up because people are watching. You prepare because someone will notice. You care because your actions are seen. This chapter just asks you to aim that force instead of pretending you're immune to it.
So what changes after this?
You stop asking, will I feel like it? And start asking, who will know if I don't? That question doesn't end the struggle, it reshapes it. And in the next chapter, we'll confront the risk nobody mentions: what happens after your habits start working too well.
Hard work isn't the problem. You keep pushing, grinding, forcing, yet it still feels uphill, like you're running on terrain that hates you. You tell yourself to try harder, to be more disciplined, to stop making excuses. But there's a quieter thought you don't say out loud. Why does this cost me so much more?
Because I'm not doing enough. That's always the answer, right? Someone else is just tougher.
That explanation feels noble. It also keeps you stuck. Let me show you something strange. Two athletes, both Olympic champions, both at the absolute edge of human performance. They even wear the same length inseam. One of them dominates the pool. The other owns the track. Switch them and everything breaks.
Wait, so you're saying effort suddenly doesn't matter?
No, I'm saying effort only works inside the right arena. Michael Phelps in water looks inevitable. Put him on a long-distance track, and every extra pound becomes an anchor. Hisham El Garouj floats across the miles. Drop him into the pool, and the water refuses to cooperate. Same discipline, same sacrifice, wrong field. This chapter isn't really about sports. It's about the silent punishment of playing a game that doesn't suit you and calling that punishment character building.
So some people are just lucky?
Luck decides where your strengths show up, not whether you have them. Genes don't lock your destiny. They highlight your opportunities. They whisper, here, effort compounds faster. Ignore that whisper and discipline feels like punishment. Listen to it and the same effort suddenly feels fair. You've felt this before. That task that drains everyone else but energizes you. The work that makes time disappear. The skill where your progress surprises even you.
But what if the thing I'm good at isn't impressive? What if it's not valued?
Then you're measuring yourself inside someone else's scoreboard. Here's the quiet advantage most people miss. When you can't win by being better, you win by being different. You combine skills, you narrow the field, you design a game where comparison stops working. The people who seem naturally talented aren't just working hard, they're working where effort pays interest. That's why habits stick for them, not because they're stronger, but because the habit finally feels satisfying.
So the real mistake is forcing myself into habits that fight me.
Exactly. Your genes don't excuse you from work, they tell you what to work on. And once you see that, discipline stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like alignment. But there's a problem we haven't touched yet. How you actually tell whether something is challenging growth or just the wrong game entirely. Because mistaking one for the other can cost you years. That's where we go next. This used to excite you. Now you're waiting for the feeling to come back.
Or maybe it's a sign. If it doesn't excite me anymore, maybe it's not right.
That sounds reasonable. It's also the moment most people walk away, right when the work stops cheering for you. You don't quit at the beginning, you quit after the novelty wears off, after the first small wins, after it starts to feel ordinary. Here's the part no one warns you about. Progress doesn't stall when things get hard, it stalls when things get predictable.
So I just need more motivation, a bigger goal, something exciting again?
That's the trap. When something is too easy, your mind drifts. When it's too hard, you tense up. But right where you have to try and can still win, your attention locks in.
So if I'm bored, that means I picked the wrong thing?
Or you picked the right thing and stayed with it long enough to reach the edge of your ability. There's a reason the people who get good at something don't look fired up all the time. They look focused, calm, slightly strained.
But what about passion? Everyone says you need passion.
Passion gets you started, precision keeps you going. You thought this was about finding motivation again. It's about placing the difficulty where your mind can't escape. Not easier, not harder, just a little beyond who you were yesterday.
So I should push harder every time, always raise the bar.
No, you should raise it barely. The mistake isn't avoiding challenge, it's overshooting it. Big jumps burn you out. Tiny adjustments keep you engaged. Here's the deeper problem most people never name. Boredom feels like failure. So when it shows up, we panic. We change plans. We chase novelty. We reset again.
Isn't boredom a sign I should stop?
It's a signal you've entered the professional phase. Anyone can show up when it's exciting. The difference appears when the work feels flat and you show up anyway. You don't fall in love with outcomes, you fall in love with showing up at the edge. This used to excite you. The question now isn't how to feel excited again. It's who you become when you keep going without it. Right when it feels mastered. That's usually when something stops growing, not because you failed, because you succeeded.
Wait, hold on. Isn't that the whole point? Get it automatic, get it smooth, get it locked in.
Yes, and that confidence is exactly where the danger hides. There's a quiet moment when effort disappears, when repetition feels earned, when your mind finally lets go. And almost everyone mistakes that moment for arrival.
So we're done then. We built the habit. Mission accomplished.
That's what it feels like. That's why it's so convincing. Habits are incredible because they remove friction, they free attention, they let you operate without thinking. But there's a trade. When something runs on autopilot, you stop listening to feedback.
But feedback is mistakes, right? If I'm not messing up, what's there to hear?
That's the trap. The errors don't scream, they whisper. An autopilot isn't built to hear whispers. Here's the part most people miss. Experience doesn't automatically mean improvement. It often just means repetition. You think you're getting better when you're really getting more consistent at being the same.
So I just need more discipline, push harder, lock it in tighter.
No, that's how you polish a plateau.
But habits are the foundation of mastery. Everyone says that.
They are. Foundations are meant to be built on, not lived on forever. Habits make the basics invisible, so you can notice the details. But if you never return to attention, the habit becomes a ceiling. Mastery isn't habit alone. It's habit plus something uncomfortable. Attention, reflection, deliberate effort. You automate the fundamentals, then you aim your focus at what still resists you.
So the work never actually gets easier.
Not easier, just different. Old challenges fade into muscle memory. New ones take their place. That's how progress stays alive. The real danger isn't bad habits, it's unexamined good ones. That's why top performers stop on purpose to review what's working and what's quietly slipping. Without reflection, the mind protects the story. I'm experienced, I know this, and growth suffocates inside that sentence. There's one more cost we don't talk about enough. Habits don't just shape behavior, they shape identity. At first, that's empowering. I'm the kind of person who does this.
Later, it turns into this is just who I am.
Exactly. And the tighter you cling to that identity, the harder it becomes to outgrow it. When improvement threatens who you think you are, the mind defends comfort, not truth. The strongest identities aren't rigid, they're flexible. Not I am this role, but I'm the kind of person who adapts. That's how habits stay tools, not cages. You don't need to optimize everything. Some habits only need to be good enough, but the ones tied to your potential, those deserve your attention again and again. Habits get you moving. Reflection keeps you awake, but knowing when to let go, when to rebuild, when to challenge what once worked, that's a skill of its own. And it's never finished. If this way of thinking feels familiar, if you like slowing down just enough to notice what's actually shaping you, then this channel is built for that kind of attention. You can subscribe if you want. Not to keep up, but to keep noticing. These ideas come from Atomic Habits by James Clear, a book that isn't really about habits at all, but about staying conscious while you change. If you want to explore the book more deeply, there's a link in the description. And if this way of thinking resonates, slow, reflective, identity-aware, you might want to stay for what comes next.